As I step into my Uber to go to the Miami airport, I notice my driver at once. He is by far the oldest driver I have ever had. Somewhere in his mid-70s, I would guess. "So where are you flying off to?" Gene asks me. That's his name. "Detroit," I say. "Ah," Gene says with a long sigh. "I used to live in Detroit. Detroit was very good to me. I had planes, I had lots of cars." "How long have you been driving, Gene?" I ask him. 4 months, he says, maybe 5. And then he adds, as if to explain, "I have boomerang kids." "What are boomerang kids?" I ask him. I really don't know. "That's when your children leave home and come back to live with you." "How many boomerangs do you have, Gene?" 4, he says. Ouch, I think to myself. "I pay $1,100 a month for my water bill," Gene volunteers. $1,100 a month? I hear my voice rise. I am incredulous. "Well, there is the pool," he says, "and the sprinkler system." And then he proceeds. "In Vietnam, you can live on $1,000 a month. I get about $50,000 a year right now. I want to go and live in Vietnam." I listen to Gene and I think to myself, this is not a story about money or Vietnam or the pathology of a certain family. This is a man who is redefining his enough. Gene has the wisdom of advancing age. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? It's not. The messages that you and I receive every day are brutal, they are persistent, and they are absolutely everywhere. And this is what they tell us over and over again: who you are, who I am, and what we do today is not enough. Let's look. No limits. Push further. You are more powerful than you think. Invest in your brain. Mental blocks cured. You and improved. These are slogans for products that promise to improve our brain functioning. Now, be really honest with yourselves. They sound kind of intriguing, don't they? Like mental blocks cured? That's cool, right? Well, this is the not-so-hidden message. The way you and I function today, right now, is not enough. Not enough, not enough, not enough, not enough. And there's a backdoor gate to this message, a gate that most of us open all too quickly. This is the gate to the deep, dark valley of not enoughness. The valley that screams, you, yes, you, to the core, you're not enough. For many of us, this valley is our permanent home. Now, I was a pretty good student. I went to a small private high school in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. There were exactly 6 students in my class. When I came home after an exam, my mom would ask me 2 questions. How did you do? and what grades did the others have. Having a good grade was never enough. I had to have a better grade than the others. When I lived in New York City, I taught for 12 years in a graduate program at a major university there. Every time I gave a student a B, and I mean every single time, I would get a phone call from that student. For the students at this university, a B was not enough. There's a price we pay. Every year, the Center for Collegiate Mental Health does a survey of mental health habits of students. 1 out of 2 students seek mental health counseling. 30% of all students take antidepressant medication, and another 30% have seriously considered committing suicide. While the reasons for these statistics are complex, as we push and push for more and more excellence and exceptional outcomes, most of the time what we produce is actually never enough. Dr. Asya Mikulinski is a pain management physician in Miami. We had a little chat. When I was studying to become a doctor, she says, I got to the point where I felt comfortable and I knew that I was ready to do my work. But I kept being showered and showered with more and more information. And I sought clarification, so I got more information, and I learned new methods and new approaches until I began to feel like what I knew was never going to be enough. Asya pauses, and then she adds, and this sense that I was never going to be enough, it began to create self-doubt in me, and at one point, it actually stopped me from trying. Now, if you teach at a university, and I know that some of you know what I'm talking about, being a great teacher is never enough. The phrase publish or perish describes the academic pressure to publish. You have to bring in prestigious grants to the university that has hired you, publish vigorously, and constantly prove to them that they didn't make a mistake. What's the result of this pressure? According to Jacob Foster at UCLA, a glut of research papers that add very little value to existing knowledge. In his massive study, he compared research projects that build on existing knowledge with research projects that actually added fresh thinking and new information. The outcomes were startlingly consistent. In biomedicine and chemistry, for example, over 60% of all papers were shown to add no innovative thought at all. So yes, we engage in lots and lots of busy work to prove that we are enough. These days, I play mostly in large corporations. I help super successful people to fine-tune their edges and have even more impact. Now, the irony of what I just said does not escape me. I mean, isn't being super successful enough? In corporations, folks have very explicit conversations about you. It's called talent management. And I believe in the process of managing talent, but the conversations that happen behind closed doors can be rough. A bunch of folks sit around a table, and chances are they'll look at a grid such as the one you see on the screen behind me right now. They talk about you, and then they place you in a box. Hey, what about Enrique? Where would you put him? Lisa, is she a high potential or a trusted professional? High potentials are the rock stars who climb to the highest echelons of the business world. Trusted professionals are folks who do a superb job in their current role, but are deemed, for whatever reason, to have reached the end of the line. As you look at this grid, ask yourselves, are you a high potential? Do you want to be a high potential? Is that important to you? Are you fine with being a solid contributor? What about being a trusted professional? What is your enough? Compared to the high potentials, everybody in this system is never quite enough. And this is the really vicious part of this blueprint. I coach high potentials, high potentials. And down the line, every single one of these brilliant folks has this gnawing sense that who he is and what she does is not enough. Now, maybe you work in a fast-moving startup and nobody has ever placed you in a box on a grid. Chances are you are hearing the same drip, drip, drip. Not enough, not enough. Chances are you hear it on the shop floor of the factory where you work. You hear it as the freelancer who is chasing a new client. And you hear it as the spouse who is staying at home and is not going to any workplace at all. Drip, drip. I get paid pretty well for the work I do. My mentor suggests I'm leaving money on the table. I live in a funky and emerging neighborhood in South Florida, right next to downtown Hollywood. Well, when you make more money, my friend Gustavo says to me, you're gonna move to the lakes, right? The lakes, you guessed it, is the fancy neighborhood. Drip, drip. Krista Davidigi is a well-known blogger on nutrition and wellness. She writes, what if I don't want to write a cookbook or earn a six-figure income or speak in front of thousands? What if I don't want to start an orphanage in Africa, but instead send some bags of groceries to people here and there and support a few kids through sponsorship? What if I just offer the small gifts I have to the world and let that be enough? This is my 92-year-old mom. She had a stroke earlier this year. The photo was taken last month, the day after she moved into her new assisted living home. Mom has been teaching me a lot about what enough looks like. Her hair has always been the bane of her existence. Somehow the color was always wrong, the texture a little too thin, the cut a little too severe. The moment she returns from her first hair salon appointment in the basement beauty parlor of her new retirement home, she looks in the mirror and sees herself, and a big smile cuts across her face. Yeah, that 92-year-old hair is looking darn good. That's enough. When she reaches for my hand and grasps it really tight with an unexpected force and says to me with a quiver in her voice, I will never forget all you have done for me. That's enough. A minute later, when she looks out the window distractedly and no longer remembers that she has just squeezed my hand, enough. When she closes her eyes and slips back into an afternoon slumber, also enough. Right here in this hall, this very moment, all is enough. I am enough. You are enough. We are enough. Nothing else is required. The first person I spoke with when I was invited to give this talk was my friend Eve Simon. Great, Eve said. This can be the topic of your next book. I have already written 3 books, I said to Eve. Maybe I don't want to write another book. We chuckle. Enough already. And so it goes. Happiness is the joy we feel when we move toward our potential. That's from Sean Aker. That is my enough. We don't move toward our potential when we live in the valley of not enough, and we never arrive anywhere with joy. I'm not enough begets futile effort. It starts wars. It promotes desperate thriving. And it costs businesses billions and billions of dollars. Sometimes we get more A's when we're okay with a B. Now, I know that my enoughs have changed over time. I don't know what yours are. It's your choice. Go and have a big, bold life if that's what you want. Or go and create a simple life around a solitary passion. Whatever your dreams, whatever your goals, whatever the result and outcome of your efforts, know that if you do absolutely nothing, you are enough. I mean, really. Like, really. Enough already. Thank you. brutal, they are persistent, and they're absolutely everywhere. And this is what they're telling us over and over again. Who you are, who I am, and what we are doing right now is not enough.